demons trembling, begging for mercy. An entire legion of dark forces instantly recognizing who stood before them. What Jesus did when demons begged for pigs will forever change your understanding of divine authority. It was 2,000 pigs, one human soul. A choice that revealed the true value of eternity. Zeit. But here's the question that could transform your life today. If even demons instantly recognize Christ's supreme authority, why do so many people still live as if he's just another religious leader? What Jesus did when demons begged for pigs will shake your deepest convictions. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. When Jesus stepped into the region of Gadara, something extraordinary happened even before he uttered a single word. The demon-possessed man ran toward him, not to attack him, but to fall down before him. Mark 5:6 tells us, when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees before him. Here's a truth many overlook. Christ's authority over dark forces doesn't need to be declared or demonstrated. It's simply recognized instantly. The demons inside that man had no choice but to recognize who stood before them. In Luke 8:28, they cried out, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me." Notice they didn't question his identity. They proclaimed it with absolute terror. This wasn't a negotiation between equals. It was the desperate recognition of an authority that cannot be challenged or resisted. The word torment here reveals something profound about the nature of the encounter between the divine and the demonic. For the forces of darkness, Jesus' mere presence is torment. His pure light is unbearable for those who have chosen darkness. This teaches us that Christ's authority isn't just about healing or miracles. It's a cosmic authority that makes every knee bow, even the knees of those who have rebelled against God. But here's what's even more impressive. Jesus didn't need to shout, fight, or put on a big show of power. His authority is so absolute that even a legion of demons, thousands of evil spiritual entities, trembled at his presence. This should make us think, if you haven't recognized this authority in your own life yet, what are you waiting for? The demons themselves already know who he is. How is it possible that creatures of darkness instantly recognize what many humans still question? There's a fascinating pattern in the Gospels that reveals a disturbing truth. Often, it's the demons who first proclaim Jesus' true identity. In Mark 1:24, an impure spirit cries out, "I know who you are, the Holy One of God." In Mark 3:11, whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." This isn't a coincidence. It's a profound revelation about the spiritual nature of reality. Why do demons recognize Jesus instantly, while many humans take years or even a lifetime to understand who he really is? The answer lies in the spiritual nature of demons. They aren't limited by flesh, human doubts, or the need for faith. They see spiritual reality with absolute clarity. For them, Christ's divinity is as obvious as the midday sun. In the case of the demon-possessed man from Gadara, the legion of demons didn't just recognize Jesus. They used his highest title, Son of the Most High God. They didn't say Son of a God or a holy man. They proclaimed his divine sonship with the supreme God of the universe. This shows us that in the spiritual realm, there's no confusion about who Jesus really is. The confusion only exists in the human realm, where pride and unbelief can blind spiritual eyes. This should alert us to a sobering reality. If you're still in doubt about who Jesus is, you're seeing less clearly than the demons themselves. They know he's the Son of God. They know he has absolute authority over them, and they know his judgment is certain. The question is, when will you recognize what even the forces of darkness already know? If God's enemies instantly recognize his authority, why do those he came to save take so long to believe? When the demons pleaded with Jesus, they made a specific request that reveals something terrifying about their fate. Luke 8:31 tells us, "And they begged him not to order them to go into the abyss." The Greek word used here is abyssos, a place of confinement and torment for rebellious spiritual beings. This isn't just about getting out of the man. It's about avoiding a destiny they know awaits them, and that absolutely terrifies them. The abyss isn't just an abstract concept, it's a spiritual reality that demons know intimately. In Revelation 21-3, we see that Satan will be thrown into this very abyss for 1,000 years. It's a place of spiritual prison, where rebellious beings await final judgment. The demons know that Jesus has the authority to send them there immediately, and that scares them more than anything else. But here's what's truly revealing. They know their time is limited. In Matthew 8:29, demons ask Jesus, "Have you come here to torture us before the appointed time?" They are aware that there's a set time for their final judgment. They know the abyss is just the first stage of an even worse fate that awaits them. This shows that, in the spiritual realm, there are no illusions about the coming judgment. The desperate fear the demons have of the abyss should make us reflect on our own eternity. If spiritual creatures who know invisible reality tremble before God's judgment, how much more should we, as human beings, take our need for salvation seriously? They know there's no escape from divine judgment. The only question is when it will come. If even demons tremble before the coming judgment, how are you preparing for eternity? When Jesus allowed the demons to enter the herd of pigs, he was making a profound statement about eternal versus temporary values. Mark 5:13 reports that about 2,000 pigs rushed into the sea and drowned, a devastating economic loss for the owners. But Jesus didn't hesitate to allow this destruction to free a single human soul. This reveals a truth that our materialistic society desperately needs to understand. The reaction of the pig owners was immediate and telling. Instead of celebrating the extraordinary miracle of the liberation of a man who had been tormented for years, they worried about their financial loss. Luke 8:37 tells us that the whole crowd of the region of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them. They literally asked Jesus to go away because his presence had cost them money. This confronts us with an uncomfortable question. What do we value more, our financial security or spiritual transformation? Jesus was teaching that a human soul is worth more than any amount of material possessions. Matthew 16:26 echoes this principle. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? The liberation of that man was infinitely more valuable than 2,000 pigs. But here's the personal application we can't ignore. How many times do we reject God's work in our lives because it might cost us something material? How many times do we choose our pigs, our comfort, our financial security, our plans, instead of the transformation God wants to bring about? Jesus is showing us that he will always prioritize our soul over our possessions. What are the pigs in your life that you've been valuing more than your spiritual transformation? The reaction of the Gadarene locals to Jesus' miracle reveals one of the most disturbing truths about human nature. Often, we fear losing control more than we celebrate the manifestation of God's power. Mark 5:15 tells us that when they saw the man who had been demon-possessed sitting there dressed and in his right mind, they were afraid. They were afraid of a miracle. This should make us think deeply about our own reactions to the supernatural. Why were people who had lived with the terror of a demon-possessed man now afraid of his healing? The answer lies in fallen human nature. We prefer the devil we know to the devil we don't. They knew how to handle a demon-possessed man. They kept him chained up and away from society. But a power that could completely transform an impossible situation? That terrified them because they couldn't control or understand it. The loss of the pigs was just the catalyst for a deeper fear, the fear of a power that transcends our ability to understand and control. In Luke 5:8, we see a similar reaction when Peter, after witnessing the miracle of the catch, told Jesus, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." The presence of the divine exposes our condition, and that can be uncomfortable for those who prefer to live in the illusion that they're in control. This leads us to a crucial reflection. How do you react When God manifests his power in your life, do you celebrate or do you pull back? Do you embrace the transformation or do you ask him to go away because his presence disturbs your comfort zone? The Gadarenes' reaction warns us that it's possible to be so attached to the familiar that we reject the miraculous. Have you ever asked God to go away from some area of your life because his presence was costing too much? What happened to the pigs when the demons entered them reveals a shocking truth about the nature of demonic forces. Mark 5:13 reports that the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned, about 2,000 of them. The demons didn't enter the animals to preserve them or use them productively. They immediately led them to total destruction. This shows us that the agenda of darkness is always and only destruction. Jesus had said in John 10:10, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." The fate of the pigs was a visual and dramatic demonstration of this truth. Demons cannot create, preserve, or build up. They can only destroy. Even when they get what they want, the end result is always chaos, death, and devastation. This should warn us about the nature of any demonic influence in our lives. When we allow evil spiritual forces to access our minds, relationships, finances, or health, the inevitable result is destruction. It might not be immediate like it was with the pigs, but the trajectory is always the same: decline, deterioration, and death. Darkness has no other plan than total annihilation. The pigs' desperate rush to their death also symbolizes how sin works in our lives. When we give in to temptations and evil influences, we often find ourselves in a headlong rush towards destruction, unable to stop by our own strength. Only divine intervention can break this destructive cycle and free us from the fatal trajectory that evil always produces. In what areas of your life have you seen destructive patterns that might indicate the influence of darkness? Even though Jesus showed absolute authority over the demons in Gadara in other liberation episodes, he taught a crucial lesson about the role of faith. In Matthew 17, when the disciples failed to heal a boy with demonic seizures, Jesus explained, "Because of your little faith. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." Faith isn't optional. It's the channel through which God's power flows. The difference between Jesus' success and the disciples' failure wasn't in the available authority, but in the faith exercised. Jesus had given the disciples authority over impure spirits in Matthew 10:1, but they failed because their faith was insufficient. This teaches us that having delegated authority isn't the same as effectively exercising it. Faith is what activates and releases God's power in impossible situations. But here's something fascinating. Jesus compared the necessary faith to a mustard seed, one of the smallest seeds known. He wasn't demanding gigantic faith, but genuine faith. A mustard seed is tiny, but it's alive and has the potential to grow. Likewise, our faith might start small, but if it's real and directed towards the true God, it can move mountains and cast out demons. The lesson for us is clear. God isn't looking for people with perfect faith, but for people with genuine faith. Hebrews 11:6 reminds us that without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. Do your faith, even if small, can be the channel for extraordinary manifestations of divine power. How big is your faith today, and how can you cultivate it to see more of God's power in your life? The end of the story of the demon-possessed man from Gadara contains one of the most powerful lessons about evangelism and personal testimony. Mark 5:18-19 reports, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." Jesus turned that man into the region's first missionary. That man's radical transformation was the most powerful testimony possible. He had gone from a wild creature, living among tombs and cutting himself with stones, to a man sitting there, dressed and in his right mind. No theological argument or eloquent speech could be more convincing than this visible and tangible change. His own life became the irrefutable proof of Christ's power. Jesus didn't let him follow him physically because he had a more important mission for him, to go home and tell his story. Mark 5:20 tells us that the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. He became an itinerant evangelist, not through formal training, but through transformative personal experience. This teaches us that the most powerful testimony we can give isn't our words, but our transformation. When Jesus radically changes a life, that change speaks louder than 1,000 sermons. Your personal story of liberation, healing, and transformation is unique and irreplaceable. No one can argue against what God has done in your life, because you are the living evidence of His power. What's your transformation story? And how have you been sharing what God has done in your life? The story of the demon-possessed man of Gadara ends with a profound challenge that echoes through the centuries to us today. The people of the region made a clear choice. They valued their pigs more than Jesus' transformative presence. They literally asked the Son of God to leave their lives because His presence had cost them money. This choice reveals the human heart in its rawest condition and forces us to examine our own priorities. The question Jesus is asking each of us through this story is simple yet penetrating. What do you value more? Your pigs, your comfort, your financial security, your plans, your reputation, your relationships that don't honor God, or the spiritual transformation that only He can offer? The answer to that question determines whether you will experience liberation or remain in captivity. Many people today make the same choice as the Gadarenes. They want the benefits of knowing Jesus, peace, purpose, hope, but they don't want to pay the price of real transformation. They want Him to heal their wounds, but they don't want Him to change their lifestyles. They want His blessing, but not His lordship. This is a superficial faith that will never experience the true power of God. But for those who are willing to lose their pigs, to give up what ties them to the world, to embrace what God has best, a transformation awaits that goes beyond any material loss. As Jesus said in Mark 10:29-30, "Truly I tell you, no one who has left home or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or fields for me and the gospel will fail to receive 100 times as much." So today, right now, what do you choose, your pigs or the transformation Jesus offers? The story of what Jesus did when demons begged for pigs isn't just an ancient account. It's a mirror reflecting eternal truths about power, priorities, and transformation. We've seen how even the forces of darkness instantly recognize Christ's supreme authority, how they fear the coming judgment, and how a single human soul is worth more than any material possession. More importantly, we've seen that our response to God's power reveals who we truly are and what we truly value. The question isn't whether Jesus has the power to transform your life. The demons themselves confirm He does. The question is whether you are willing to pay the price of that transformation. The man who was set free that day became a living testimony to Christ's transformative power, bringing hope to an entire region that had rejected Jesus. His story reminds us that no matter how desperate our situation, no matter how many demons torment us, be they addictions, fears, traumas, or sins, Jesus has absolute authority to set us free. But this liberation requires a choice. Will you value your pigs or embrace transformation? Will you ask Jesus to leave when His presence costs something? Or will you trust that what He offers is infinitely more valuable than anything you could lose? The choice is yours, but remember, even the demons know who He is. The question is, when will you recognize and surrender to the authority that even darkness cannot deny? If this story has touched your heart and opened your eyes to truths you had never considered, please like this video so more people can discover Christ's transformative power. Your interaction is essential for us to bring these biblical messages to thousands of souls who need to hear about Jesus' supreme authority. And if you're ready to make the choice the man from Gadara made, to choose transformation instead of life's pigs, write in the comments, "I trust in the transformation Jesus offers." Your declaration of faith can inspire others to make the same courageous decision. Subscribe to the Biblical Memories channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any revelations that can transform your spiritual life. But our journey through biblical truths doesn't end here. If you were impressed by Jesus' power and authority demonstrated in this story, you need to discover another fascinating mystery. Why did the Son of God live only 33 years on earth? This wasn't a coincidence or an accident. There's a profound and incredible reason behind this divine choice that will transform your understanding of the plan of salvation. In our next video, Why did Jesus live only 33 years? Discover the incredible reason. You'll uncover surprising prophetic connections, hidden symbolism in biblical numerology, and revelations that show how every year of Christ's life was perfectly planned from the foundation of the world. This revelation will connect dots you never imagined and further strengthen your faith in divine sovereignty. The link is in the description and on the card that will appear on your screen. Until the next video, may God bless your journey of faith and transformation.